Right, so we've now talked about exporting a single clip, and we've also talked about exporting two separate clips that we want to have entirely separate in whatever context we happen to be presenting them in. But there is one other form of clipping that you can do, and it's let's say that for, again, within this fantasy scenario that I've set up here, let's say that I was interested in question 1 and question 3 but not question 2. So let's say that there was a phenomenon of interest that appeared in question 1, a phenomenon of interest that appeared in question 3 but not in question 2. And this is something that happens quite a lot, certainly in CA. Someone will do something very, very interesting here and they'll do it later on, but there'll be this intervening stuff that you're not really interested in. What can we do about that? Well, one thing to do might be to export them. So let's say you were showing them in a data session. So one option would be to export them and export them separately, and then you could take them to that data session, and when you got there you could just play the one clip, then you could run up and start playing the second clip separately. Okay, so that's one way of doing it, and that's the method that we saw in the previous video. Works perfectly fine for that. But there is another thing that you can do, which is to just stitch them together into one video, and this can be done quite simply in Shotcut. So you'll see that I've still got my my edit points in here. So this is question 1, this is question 2, this is question 3. So what we would do is we would, first of all, obviously we'd remove the part that we're not interested in, which for the purposes of this video is question 2. Bye-bye question 2. There goes question 2, the best question I ever saw. And we're going to now drag this a little bit closer. And I'll just play what this looks like, to give you an idea.
Pack my bags and go. So okay.
Okay, and then we get a black screen, and then the next chunk of data that we're actually interested in begins playing. That was probably a bit too much black screen actually, so you'd probably want something more like that, and that just helps to separate out the two chunks of data. And then what you could do is you could go to export again and export that, and Shotcut would export that all as one file with the black screen in there. So that's one way of doing it. But something that I've become quite fond of recently is actually doing something with the space between the two clips. Basically putting I believe it's called an intertitle there between the two clips to describe what has happened in the bit that we've cut out. And this is something we do quite often in transcripts, I think. So if we omit something in a transcript, we might just note on the transcript, put a brief description there saying, in the 20 lines that were omitted, blah blah blah, this happened, this happened, this happened. And I think it's quite a nice way of, I suppose it's a nice way of keeping the audience, whoever they happen to be, up to date with what's going on, and also preempting any questions they might have. So how do we do that then? Well, first of all, we need to actually tell Shotcut to create us a piece of black screen, because this is just default black screen. We can't do anything with this. This is just there because there's nothing else there. So we need to be active. We need to actively create some black screen. And thankfully, Shotcut has a very simple way of doing this. If we go to Open File up here, Open Other, so click on Open Other, and then go down here to Generator, and you go to Color, and click on Color again, and you'll see it doesn't have to be a black screen, of course. If you wanted to be snazzy about it, you could have a nice green screen or a nice red screen. You can go nuts, you know. There are all sorts of options here that you can play around with if you want the perfect screen color for your intertitle. But I'm going to go with nice basic black. So click on black, and click on that. So we now have that, and we click OK. So what's happened here? Well, you'll notice that, it was on a black screen already, so you won't have noticed a shift up here, but I guarantee you there has been a shift. This is now actively black screen, unlike the default black screen that we had before. And one thing that's important to mention here is make sure when you're doing this stage of the process, make sure that this tab here is on source. If you're doing it on project, it won't work. I mean, you should be able to tell the difference between source and project, but just in case, if you do have problems, it might be that you're not on source. So click on source, and that is the black screen that Shotcut has just created for us. And I'm just going to create a nice space there for this to slot into, and then we can work. Oops, you see I was on project just then. Yeah, sometimes it snaps it back to project, I think. So make sure we're on source. There we go. Okay, so now I can drag this black screen down as I did originally, drag the black screen down into the timeline there, and there we go. And then we can, how long is this black screen actually? Doesn't look like it's too long to me. What you can do in Shotcut very, very usefully is you can actually extend things like this. So if I just click here, get it at the edge, and then just drag it out, I can actually extend my black screen. I can have a longer piece of black screen. So yeah, so we now, if I just play this, I'll see how long this gives us.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a long piece of black screen, but anyway, I can obviously fill that down at the end. But what we need to do now, and this is something we're going to be talking about more in the subtitling video, but we can use a text filter to actually write on this piece of black screen here. So all we do is we go into filters up here, and again make sure that the black screen is the part that has the red outline on it. And we don't have it here, so we can either scroll down to text in the video tab, or we can just search up here for text. Search text, and then we click on text, and this box opens, and I'm going to be talking a lot more about this box in the subtitling video, obviously, but you can just follow along for now. So first of all, we delete the timecode, and then we'd go in here to choose our font, and this is the font that I quite like. Sego UI Black, might be Sego, I'm not sure, but Sego, and I think that size 32 is quite good for that. And you tick this box here, and you can, I think you'd want to center it as well vertically, so you click on middle, and we can now write what happened in the question that we didn't see. And I happen to know that that question was about how Charles first made contact with Loughborough, so I can type question about how Charles made contact with Loughborough. You'll notice I had to do a manual line break there, so I just tap the enter key to do a manual line break. It doesn't do them automatically, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the subtitling video. So question about how Charles made contact with Loughborough removed, and that could be perfectly fine on its own, but if you wanted to go one step further, of course, you could just draw a line, get your playhead about in the middle of that, and then you could split it, and then so you could have this in this part, but then in this part you could delete this text, because again, once you've split the playhead, nothing you do on this side, what you do on this side no longer affects what's on that side. So we could type here, for example, we rejoin the video as interviewer, join the video as the interviewer, that's me, but for the purposes of this video I'm pretending that it's not, as the interviewer is asking the third question. And let me just see what that looks like.
Okay.
Question about how Charles made contact with Loughborough removed. We rejoin the video as the interviewer is asking the third question. I think that's staying on screen for a little bit too long actually, so what you can do, just to edit this down a bit, you can go split at playhead, and then the bit that's outlined in red, you can just press delete. In fact, I'll do the method that gives you the visual feedback, remove, and then you can, it automatically does it there. And yeah, I mean, you can play around with how long you want those things to be on screen, but I think that my feeling is that looks very, very nice, and it helps, again, it helps to keep everything in one video, and it means that as the person who's doing the data session, for example, you don't have to run up to start playing clip 2. You can just have it all nice and ready to go and to unroll on its own and automatically. So yeah, that is how we do video editing, and I'll see you in the next video where we're going to be talking about subtitles. Bye bye for now.